Good evening. Nice to be here. I'll start with the Sanskrit prayer and then English translation, then talk a little bit about meditation from the perspective of Vedanta. And what the heck is Vedanta? I'll cover that too. And then we'll do a guided meditation and open it up for Q&A. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityo ma amritam gamaya, avir ma edi, rudrayate dakshinam mukam, te namam pahi nityam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through and guide us evermore with thy loving presence. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So you're in the business school. You're learning how to navigate a lot of different things simultaneously. And I've heard that it can be very challenging to gather all the information that's necessary and assimilate it and then spit it out and get good grades. So I want to present kind of a backdrop on human existence that is indigenous to India and a little different understanding than most people have of Hinduism. Vedanta is an indigenous word for the religion which is called Hinduism. The Vedas are the foundational scriptures of Hinduism, and Vedanta refers to those parts of the Vedas which deal with the ancient discoveries about the nature of reality and the fundamental nature of human beings and the goal of human life. Success is usually presented as the outcome of competition. My success is based on your failure. It's a little Darwinian. More thoughtful approaches to success say that success is the outcome of a positive mental attitude. This is a little less Darwinian, but I've got an edge because I've got a better mental attitude, and therefore I'll succeed, but someone has to fail. As a species, human beings, if you look at it over time, have succeeded based on cooperation, transferring knowledge from one generation to another, and cooperating in work activities as family groups, as tribes, as larger groups of people. We can do this better than other forms of life. And we're successful based more on our cooperative abilities than our competitive abilities. This is the viewpoint of Vedanta. Vedanta says that we will be successful as individuals when we interact with others with love, respect, and a spirit of cooperation. If we love and respect ourselves, we can love and respect others and work cooperatively. This calms the mind. With a calm mind, we can more easily meditate, and a calm mind can be applied more effectively to the problems of everyday life. Hinduism is generally thought of as the religion of 333 million gods and goddesses. The caste system, sacred cows, and a lot of things that seem superstitious. This all misses the point. The fundamental discovery of Hinduism, of the Hindu ethos, is quite different. In Sanskrit, it's called Advaita, non-dualism. Sometimes it's called monism. In the search for reality, the ancient sages of India, called rishis, seers of truth, looked inward. And the sciences were developed in ancient India, but there was another group of people that searched inward for the nature of reality. And through this search, the ancient rishis discovered that matter isn't real. Matter is not reality. The old Western science said that matter can't be created or destroyed. That was the maxim before Einstein. And now we know differently. Matter contains tremendous potential energy. No one questions that now. So what we experience, the common experience that we share through the senses and the mental apparatus, is not reality. Looking introspectively, the ancient sages, in search of that which does not change, reality with a capital R, found a witness consciousness, watching the mind, watching the senses, watching the external world. That consciousness is called Atman in Sanskrit. It witnesses the waking state. It witnesses dream sleep. And it witnesses dreamless sleep, deep sleep, where the ego and the mind vanish. That witness consciousness is there. And when we come out of deep sleep, we know that during deep sleep, we did not know anything. And there's a sense of peace that's there as well. Something that doesn't change is going to exist through all our states of consciousness. This was the discovery of the rishis. They called it Atman. So from the viewpoint of materialistic science, consciousness is an accidental byproduct of blind material forces. All of a sudden it pops up. From the perspective of Vedanta, consciousness is the basic reality, and this material world is the appearance that rides on it. It's exactly the opposite of the materialistic science conclusion. This witness consciousness, I'm presenting the perspective of Vedanta, which is quite different from an ordinary perspective. This witness consciousness is the reality standing behind the ever-changing ego, giving it continuity and connecting all experience into a coherent whole. Now you might say, what's the evidence for it? From common experience. Okay, fine, the rishis found it. I'm not a rishi. Teenagers are especially expert at sleeping. Do you remember how hard it was to get up in the morning and go to school when you were sleeping? Or when you were a teenager? Really tough. And sometimes, it happened to me when I was a teenager, you sleep so soundly that when you wake up, you have this really nice feeling of being rested. And for a moment, you don't know where you are. You've lost your bearings. Has that ever happened to anyone? When they wake up, they don't know where they... You might be in the room that you sleep in every night in your parents' home. But for a moment, you don't know where you are. You're disoriented. And then you realize you had a good sleep and you're in your room and everything comes back in. Well, there's just a moment before you realize you don't know where you are when you don't know who you are. Because who you are connects you with where you went to sleep. There's a moment when you don't know who you are. And coming out of deep sleep, where the ego disappears, you get a glimpse of that state. You're just fine without the ego. You have this calmness, this kind of unspecified happiness, and you're just fine without the ego. The Vedantic view is you have to throw off the ego every day in deep sleep in order to stay sane. You need a rest not only from the body, but from that ego, which is pushing us here and there and making us react all the time. We're just fine without the ego every night during deep sleep. So what does meditation do? Meditation allows us, when it works, when we're concentrated, to throw off the ego temporarily and get the same kind of rest that we get in deep sleep, except we're conscious of it. This is the metaphysical background for Vedantic meditation. In the highest internal experience of divinity, what I'm talking about is divinity. Reality and divinity are the same in Vedanta. In the highest mystic experience, this witness consciousness becomes all-pervading. The universe disappears, the ego disappears, and one experiences all-pervading consciousness, infinite. And not just consciousness, but loving consciousness. Sat Chit Ananda. Existence is Sat. The nature of Sat means isness. Reality is infinite consciousness and infinite bliss. So as all-pervading, this is the non-dual experience. Everything disappears. It's just this spiritual reality of the nature of consciousness and bliss. Inexpressible, beyond thought, beyond form. And very nice. That's called Brahman. The witness consciousness, Brahman as it manifests itself in our psychophysical systems, is called Atman. And the fundamental truth, discovery of Hinduism is this witness consciousness which seems related to this finite little changing psychophysical organism, is actually the all-pervading existence. Energy is called Shakti in Sanskrit. And there's an equivalence between energy and consciousness. So you take, it just goes one or two steps beyond what we know right now through our science. The nature of reality is loving consciousness. Okay. Now, years ago, after I graduated from college, before I became a monk, I graduated from Washington University in St. Louis. That's where I stumbled across the Vedanta Society. And years ago, they had an assembly series for the entire university from 11 to 12 on Wednesdays. And no classes were scheduled, undergraduate or graduate in the whole school during that time. They'd bring in speakers, national and international. And I went to this talk by Joseph Campbell. Does anyone know who Joseph Campbell is? Hey, kudos. You guys are pretty well read. He was a comparative mythologist at Columbia University who worked in the middle and latter part of the 20th century. And he was giving a talk at this assembly series, so I went to it. And he opened the talk by taking out, this is very old-fashioned, but I'm very old, a newspaper clipping, an AP newspaper clipping from Hawaii, and he read it. So there are cliff formations in Hawaii that are the shape of the cliff and the height of the cliff can at times take the trade winds that come off the oceans and intensify them, such that at times the wind blowing up the face of the cliff from the ocean can be gale force or tornado force or hurricane force. But these cliffs are, 1,000 feet or higher, and the lookout is beautiful. So people go up there. And this AP clipping, someone had been up there looking at the view and decided to commit suicide by jumping off. Just as the moment he chose to jump off, the wind was coming up the face of the cliff at terminal velocity. So he was suspended in space. You can imagine his chagrin, right? Feeling so depressed that he had to commit suicide and jumping off, and he couldn't even fall. The closest person to him was an off-duty policeman who grabbed him. And as he grabbed him and attempted to pull him back on the cliff face, the wind died down a little bit. The policeman was going over it. At the last minute, someone grabbed onto the policeman, someone else grabbed onto that person, and between all of them, they managed, and the wind cooperated enough that everyone got pulled back onto the cliff face. So the AP reporter asked the policeman this question. At that moment, when you were going over the cliff, why didn't you let go? Good question. What kind of sane answer could he give? Well, what he said was, at that moment, there was no difference between me and him. Doesn't make any sense from a physical perspective, different person, even with your own relative. How many people would hang on when they're going to die too? Doesn't make any sense from a psychological perspective. The different minds. but it makes perfect sense from the perspective of Atman. The witness consciousness that I have and that you have, that all of us have, according to Vedanta, is exactly the same. The Atman has no attributes other than consciousness and love. And this is how Joseph Campbell introduced the concept of Atman to an audience that didn't know anything about it. So this policeman probably wasn't practicing meditation, probably wasn't a Hindu, probably didn't know anything about Vedanta. But from the perspective I'm talking about, this awareness of our larger dimension of being human can pop out at surprising times and motivate us to action which is unselfish. Acting with love, respect, and cooperation is called dharma in Sanskrit. It's the way that the highest spiritual reality of non-dualism, of Advaita, that very few people actually experience, expresses itself on the normal human plane of interaction. It calms the mind. And in a calm mind, we can think more clearly. Our judgment works more effectively. And the corollary of meditating is that our normal life, the effectiveness of our normal life, increases. The mind is our instrument. Doesn't matter whether we're reading a paper, talking, whether you're listening to me. No matter what we're doing, that's our instrument. If we can keep the mind in good shape, we're better off. And as the mind calms, it helps our internal guidance system, our judgment, that joy that's inherent in the Atman finds easier expression through our minds. The corollary of someone who's getting good meditation is cheerfulness. And this is also a very practical thing to have in life. Happiness comes from within. We need to unlock it. So the meditation tonight has both aspects. Meditation on the Atman, which is beyond attribute, beyond thought. And meditation on that spiritual reality, which is beyond thought, form, and qualities, with form and quality. It's a matter of taste. Meditation on the absolute non-dual reality with form and attributes is what we normally call meditation on God. If we're not aware of the witness consciousness, or we're not comfortable with that kind of meditation, then the other one is offered as an alternative. It's a matter of taste. So the meditation is going to have both. Okay. Think that everything is favorable for your life. You are at peace with everyone. Everyone is at peace with you. As soon as we give up all negative feeling from within, We have nothing to fear from anyone. Think that the atmosphere around you is pure, wholesome, serene. As you inhale the air, think that your body is being purified, your mind getting calm. Your longing for the highest good is more and more manifest within. Throughout your life, what you are seeking is the highest, the best. In seeking beauty, we seek the very perfection of beauty. In seeking love, we seek the very highest manifestation of love, the very perfection of love. In seeking knowledge, we seek the highest knowledge, the perfection of knowledge. In seeking power, we seek the very highest power, the perfection of power. And where is that perfection? Where is the highest, the best? There are many high, many higher. There are many good, there are many better. But the best is one. The highest is one, and one alone. And that highest conception, that highest ideal is called God. After long experience in this universe, many trials, many errors, we come to realize that our ultimate goal is not anything limited, not anything finite, not anything impermanent. The ultimate goal is the limitless one, the perfect. And why do we seek that? Why do we seek the highest? Why do we seek the best? Why is it that nothing else satisfies us? Because there is a kinship between you and that. Apparently, we're mortal. From the perspective of the body, yes. But from the perspective of consciousness, no. Apparently, we're bound. But from the perspective of that loving consciousness, free. Apparently weak, but really beyond all weakness. Pure, immortal, changeless spirit of the nature of loving consciousness. You are the knower of the physical body. You are the knower of the entire psychophysical organism, including the mind. You are that central principle of loving consciousness that unifies all physical and mental elements into a coherent whole. That is the thread that unites the necklace of experience. That central principle of consciousness within you is changeless, ever shining, manifesting the entire universe to you. That central principle of loving consciousness is the eye of the eye. It is the ear of the ear. Because of that, the eyes see, the ears hear, the mouth speaks, the hands work, the legs move, and the mind thinks, feels, and imagines. Because you are essentially that pure spirit of the nature of loving consciousness, there is a constant cry within for the realization of that perfection, the perfect. The perfect one, apparently the farthest, is the nearest. That which seems to be inaccessible is already within you, because that reality is not apart from this universe. It is the very soul of the universe and the very essence of each and every form of existence. That which is innermost in the universe is innermost in each and every one of us. Just as at the back of each and every wave, there is one boundless mass of water that we call ocean. Similarly, at the back of each and every finite center of loving consciousness is the all-pervading loving consciousness. Just as this body-mind complex is unified, is vivified by one central principle of loving consciousness, so this universe is maintained, sustained, and manifested by one supreme, pure spirit. If you cannot see that clearly, you may meditate on that through any form that represents divinity to you. The form of any great spiritual leader who realized that perfection and inspired others to do so can serve as a symbol for the support of the mind during meditation. Deeply meditate on that form, full of love, as your innermost self. Visualize that form, radiating consciousness, removing all darkness from within, radiating peace, radiating wisdom, radiating freedom and joy. Meditate intensely on your inmost self. Intensely contemplate on that. Center your thoughts and feelings and activities. Turn your attention, visualize that, concentrate your thoughts on that luminous form. Through this meditation, as the mind becomes tranquil, transparent, filled with light and joy, realization is attained. Om. Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This ever-changing, interdependent universe of things and beings is infinite. That unchanging, self-existent spiritual reality is infinite. This ever-changing universe, having come from that unchanging reality, that reality remains undivided, unchanged, complete, perfect, infinite. Peace, peace, peace be unto all beings. Now I can see you. So, any comments, questions, or opinions? Yes. More what? Oh, really? Yeah. Well, meditation isn't easy. The mind, I heard this afternoon, a nice analogy. The mind is like one of those roll-about pieces of luggage that you're rolling on the plane with you in the hopes that you can find a place for it in the overhead. And if you don't hold on to it, it tends to roll wherever the gravity takes it. You know, it's got 4 wheels on it, it goes away. But see, once, how can I say it? Once you get a good connection with that kind of steady, once you get connected with that, I don't know how to express it, but once you get connected with the divinity, it kind of pulls you along because there's a joy that comes with that. And your breathing slows down, your concentration gets easier. You have to practice it for a while and regularly. But as you go along, it works. It's dependable. You can get this effect that the mind slows down and you forget who you are for a while. And then when you come out of it, it's like you're fresh. You're ready to go again. It's a great way to get a vacation from, you can throw off the yoke of the ego consciously instead of waiting to be pulled down into deep sleep in order to do it. In that sense, you gain more control. Yes. Acha. The ego is who we think we are. I'm a business school student. I'm so many years old. I wear glasses. I have these parents. I have these expectations. All that's who we think we are, and that changes as we go along because who we are physically changes, who we are mentally changes, but it's who we think we are at any particular time, not constant. And yeah. So from the Vedantic perspective, this principle of consciousness is witnessing the body, which is the closest thing to us. And we get identified with the body. But the body's changing. So our ego changes with the body. It changes with the mind. But that witness consciousness stays the same. It's what connects all our different ego identifications. Makes us seem like the same person that we were when we were a little kid, when we had our first memory. Same person. Even though the ego identifications, who we think we are, is constantly changing. Yeah. That's going to be a good question.
As far as I can tell, there's a longing for, there's a desire for, the fact that we're going to be stuck in a bodysuit for the next 2 months. I'd imagine many of us here are. How do you tell? How do you strive for something? You have to have desire.
Well, that's an excellent question. According to Vedanta, the one universal duty of all human beings is to cultivate fellow feeling towards our fellow beings and overcome anti-feeling towards our fellow beings. This is what makes us human. This is how the highest reality manifests on the human plane. And I've given you the metaphysical background, but essentially every religion is telling you this. It's telling you to be moral. And what does that mean? Basically, it means act unselfishly. Now, this is on a sliding scale, okay? What's unselfish for one person might seem very selfish for another. But that aligns us with our higher nature. And it calms the mind. And it makes our guidance system, our judgment, work better. So if the goal is to make millions of dollars, you want to be successful in that, you need a good instrument. You need your mind in good working order. You need to make good decisions. And following dharma will give you this. Now, you don't have to have the desire to go beyond all limitations and become a religious figure. Not necessary. There's some of you have probably heard about this. It's called the Harvard study of adult development, started in 1939 and is still going on. what constitutes happiness, what makes people happy. And what they found was, there's a lecture by Robert Waldinger in 2016 at its, when it was about 75 years ongoing. What they found is not what the originators expected to find. If you look at, and they took people that were 19 years old in Harvard, and then a control group from the poorest neighborhoods in Boston of the same age, and followed them until their deaths. You know, psychological tests, physical tests. They videotape spouses talking with each other in their living room. This whole huge amount of data. And what they found when the participants were in their 80s is the best indicator at age 50 of the well-being physically and mentally at 80 was not the cholesterol level at 50 or any of the medical results from the medical tests. The best predictor at 50 of one's happiness, mental and physical well-being at 80 was the quality of one's close personal relationships. And translating it into Vedantic terms, Dharma. If the people or persons that you're close with, and it may or may not be a spouse, if you can count on them when the chips are down, doesn't matter whether you're bickering with them all the time. If they can count on you when the chips are down, they know you've got their back, you know they've got your back. Then your physical health is better, your mental health is better. Loneliness is toxic. So cultivating fellow feeling towards our fellow beings is good for us. In the worldly sense and in the spiritual sense. It pays off. The bottom line is good. It's only 12 minutes and 47 seconds. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. Yes? It's important, I think, for most people to have people with whom you can just talk to, whatever's on your mind. That's really important. So that that conflicts and tensions don't build up. It's really important to have good friends who you can just talk to. You don't have to worry about, ruining the friendship and things like that. Might be relative, might be an aunt, might be a grandma, might be a college friend. It can vary. But I think that's really, really important. And then there are hygienic tips, get good sleep. That's really helpful. Try to go to bed at the same time. Don't drink coffee past a certain. Getting good sleep is really important. From the metaphysical standpoint that I've been talking from, it's really important to get down into deep sleep and not to stay on the surface of sleep. Because that'll rejuvenate us. We'll feel rested when we get out of it. Some kind of regularity in your life really helps with mental focus. And then having people that you can just talk to, so things don't become a burden or become kind of pressurized inside. And then a spiritual practice, if you're oriented in that way, doesn't have to be long. I was talking with, gave a couple of presentations at our Vedanta Center over the weekend, and there were a couple of Carnegie Mellon PhD students in some kind of engineering or, I don't understand what you guys study anymore. You've got fields that I don't even, I'm a data scientist, I do data analytics. Okay. But you were talking, I said, well, you don't have much time. Just pick some kind of uplifting reading and do it 10 minutes, the last thing before you go to sleep. Take that with you into sleep. Get some kind of joy, some kind of connection that takes you out of your everyday kind of mental patterns and take that with you to sleep. I've found personally that changes the quality of the sleep for the better. And then start out with something like that. Start out with something like that has a little more punch to it. So you get your day started with some punch. So you get yourself jump started. And that's very helpful. But it depends on the person. Regularity of habits is extremely important for maintaining our physical and mental health. And then the quality of our close personal relationships as well. Tend to them. If your friend needs help, find the time. They'll find the time for you too. It's just practical stuff. All the religions tell us that. It's our metaphysical background is a little different, that's all. Is that helpful? Yeah. Yes.
Why is it that
Why is it that the mind keeps jumping off to different places all the time, and that makes it hard to focus? Yeah. As we get older, we become more conscious of the effect that what we eat has on our health. And at some point, most people like you who are intelligent and educated decide to kind of limit junk food and eat more healthy stuff. Yes? Have you gotten to that stage yet? It'll come. So we need to be careful about what we take in mentally as well. And that'll help a lot. The purpose of mass media is to distract us. If you look at the commercials, they're jumpy. They jump from one thing to another. In our normal life, we have continuous visual fields. We look over here, and then we scan, we look over here. And if you look at the shows, the commercials, and sometimes the shows even, they'll just jump from one frame to another, back and forth like that. That makes your mind jumpy. So we need to be careful about the kind of mental food that we take in, because that has an effect on the mind. Passively observing a television show or something on the internet is not work, but it's karma. If we become identified with that, it has an effect on the mind. And things that are jumpy and discontinuous and kind of disjointed have that kind of effect on the mind as well. So we need to be careful about the mental food that we ingest. I was talking to a friend who retired recently, a scientist. His lab discovered suppressor T cells. They're called regulator T cells also. And talking about the internet, and I said how it's kind of dangerous to just kind of spend your time on the internet. He said, "Oh, I found it so helpful. I'm able to look up references so readily, and it saves me a lot of time when I'm doing research and reading articles." So he's only using the internet in a very directed way. And it's improved his scientific life. So it's not making his mind jumpy. It's making his mind more calm. It satisfies him. So we need to be intentional about the mental stimulation which we take in. And whether it makes our minds jumpy or it calms our minds. That helps a lot. And the friends that we have, the people we associate with, if their minds are scattered, it's going to have the tendency to make our minds more scattered too. If we can make friends with people we emulate, instead of just spending time with people, that helps us. People that have qualities that we admire. We learn a lot from the people we associate with. Yeah. Yes, there is. There is. Is there any benefit from meditating as a group? Yeah, we tend to do it at our Vedanta centers. Yeah. And there's a benefit to religious observances in churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, because well, I'm going to say this. You may or may not believe it. It's been my observation that if people go to a particular place for spiritual reasons, to become better people, there's an atmosphere that builds up there that's uplifting. Holy people make holy places. And over time, it's been my experience that there are places where I can go where I feel better just going there. I might go there in a terrible mood, and I'll come out with a less terrible mood. I go in with a good mood, and there's no cost. You just go there. That's the advantage of group worship and group meditation. We had a postdoctoral fellow in engineering at WashU who used to come to the St. Louis Center, and he very brilliant guy, but very uncomplicated. You know, whatever he thought he'd say, he wasn't guarded at all. Very clean mind. So he came over one day and he said, "You know, all my friends are depressed." He said, and some of them are very depressed. He said, "And I'm depressed, but not as bad as some of my friends." And he says, "But what I like about this place is every time I come here, I leave less depressed." So there's that aspect to it too. there's a synergy in many people with the same intention coming together. They help each other. Yeah, it's a good thing. Yes, you were paying very close attention. Well, the two best times, well, for most people are, oh, you've opened up a big subject, actually. It's better to meditate on an empty stomach than to try to meditate after you've eaten. Yeah. So the studies that have been done on Buddhist monks who meditate, and they measure things like the electroencephalograph, to what part of the brain is active, and blood flow and so forth. Well, they find that with people who are kind of professional meditators, more blood flows to the brain when they're meditating. And when you eat a meal, the stomach is also calling for more blood. So the danger of trying to meditate after you've eaten is that the brain might lose the fight for blood and you fall asleep. The stomach might win. And if the brain wins, your digestion might suffer. But this becomes a problem only when you're a little better at meditating. Yeah. But in general, it's easier to meditate before rather than after. So first thing in the morning is a good time. If you don't eat right before you go to bed, last thing at night is okay. Before you eat lunch, almost no one in this society has time to meditate. So don't feel bad if you don't do it. But just setting aside some time when you can regularly do something that focuses you on that higher dimension of being human, where you get a little bit of that love and joy and calmness on a regular basis is helpful. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank all of you. You're a joy to talk to. And I hated really to break up the meditation because you're also you're also calm and focused. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Sure.